We live in interesting times, don't you think? Wars, economic crises, pandemics. How unlucky are we, right? Actually, on the contrary, we are pretty lucky. Anybody who compares the times we are living with the past will discover that all these events were more tragic a few centuries ago, or even less than a century. Wars used to make millions of victims, not tens of thousands like nowadays. Crises were deeper, and their effects changed not only governments but history itself. The consequences of this crisis can still be seen today. If history were a person, it would be the one with the longest list of grudges. What I observed, though, is the return of, I hoped, dead ideas that poise the minds and souls of people. Ideas that divide society and lead to hate, war, and destruction. It's like a bad sequel to a movie we thought had finally ended. It would be rude to start with our own opinion, so we will quote. Nationalism, an ideology based on the premise that the individual's loyalty and devotion to the nation-state surpass other individual or group interests. Encyclopedia Britannica. This ideology was born at the end of the 18th century. Some historians consider that the American and French revolutions may be seen as the first powerful manifestations of the newly arrived ideology. I mean, it was about time, don't you think? After centuries and millenniums when people killed each other based on religious differences, now at least, thank God, a new motive for waging war. I'm imagining a 1796 commercial for the new product, nationalism. Tired of killing your fellow neighbor because he dares to believe in a false god? After ages of destruction, crime and war for the same boring reason, religion, our specialists have developed a brand new motive. We proudly present you nationalism. Now you can crush the neighbor for a newly developed idea. And don't worry, that doesn't mean that you must abandon the good old ways of killing people. Based on our research, now you can combine the two, nationalism and religion, in every way you like for a completely new war flavor. Pick your motives and wipe them out. Advertising was a blast back then, huh? But let's get back to our idea, shall we? It's the year 1800, around that area. We are in an age of empires. Not the game, but the real deal. The world is split between a few European great powers, which represent roughly 90% of the economic, political and military power of the entire planet. It was like a game of Risk, if you want, where one player had all the armies. On the scene appears a fresh arrived idea that says, we, the people, that live and work here, should be the real beneficiaries of the goods that come out as a result of our work. We should be governing ourselves in our benefit and not for the benefit of a king from half planet away who does not know or care that we worked hard for this result. He just takes our money away and parties hard in his palaces against the rules that he imposed upon us, the working ones. Who knew kings were the original party crashers? I digress. Hey, cheers, mate! Wait a minute. That is coming from a future era when the times will have changed and people will have evolved. For sure, the future leaders will respect their people that work hard so that they, the leaders, live in wealth and infinite power. That's another script. So, what were we saying? Oh yeah, nationalism suddenly appeared in a world dominated by kings and emperors, shaking the existing order just like a visit of Sigmund Freud in Hugh Hefner's mansion, or the appearance of Satoshi Nakamoto at a big bankers' congress. Talk about crashing the party. Nationalism was a pretty good idea, don't you think? Hard-working people, some would say slaves, working in hard to imagine conditions nowadays, dying young, with no pension, medical care or any kind of rights, living like this for centuries and even millenniums, generation after generation, now awakened by this wonderful dream of independence. We could live as we wish, we could decide what we do with our money, with our future, with our lives. Wait, I really like it. Does that make me a nationalist? Kind of, but not really. We will talk about it later. Indeed, sounds good, sounds incredible. Unfortunately, the guys who were the bosses of the working people profoundly disagreed with them and pretty much killed or tried to kill every single one of the slaves that thought at some point that he mattered and he was supposed to be independent and together with his fellow companionship form a new national independent state. This was going to be a struggle that started with the American Revolution and took us, humankind, around 1.5 centuries until most nations got rid of the bayonets that stood at their necks and the greedy foreign hands that were deep into their pockets. The result of this tremendous 150 years of fighting we can now admire in the British Museum, the biggest collection of stolen goods in plain sight. Visiting hours are daily from 9 to 5. Tax-free, your ancestors have paid it with blood. Unfortunately. What a pity. But colonialism did not create only death and suffering. Conquering the whole world did not mean only wiping out entire civilizations from the face of the earth. Not at all. There are also benefits that we can see today. For example, I can speak English. Kind of. That's a plus for our planet, right? And also colonialism created jobs, like for the curators of museums all around Europe. Isn't that something? Somebody must protect all those treasures from the hordes of needy people who come to serve them from all over the planet. I'm joking, of course. Colonialism and all the other forms of waging war on weaker people created jobs not only for the curators, but for entire nations. It created wonderful cities like London, Vienna, St. Petersburg, Madrid, Istanbul, Constantinople, not Istanbul, Istanbul doesn't exist, New York, New York, New York, New York. Paris, l'incroyable Paris, so beautiful city of love, I mean, ville d'amour, Paris merveilleuse, absolument merveilleuse, en délice. It is such a good feeling to return to your beautiful country, because we the French are nationalists too, you know, after wandering around on the seas. I discovered and civilized some poor and ugly savages. I accidentally found some gold on the ground, and while I was carrying the gold to my ship, these savages continuously hit my cannons with some sticks. Unacceptable, how rude! I do not like these guys. These are not civilized and pas possible. You may think, man, I don't get it. People say that nationalism is bad, and now you come with this idea that nationalism liberated millions of people from the harsh rule of a few strong empires. How is that bad? You're right, it's not bad. But a bit of patience, one step at a time. There are institutions and ideas that can be useful for one era, but with time they become obsolete or even destructive. I will give you an example. The candle was pretty useful before the invention of electricity, right? It brought light and comfort to millions of people, improving their lives. Nowadays its role is pretty much decorative. It can spice up your romantic life. But if you're not paying attention, it can burn your Christmas tree. An unsupervised light candle has become a fire hazard.
Für dich eingesetzt habe, dass ich anständig meine Zeit verwendet habe im Dienste meines Volkes. Gib du jetzt deine Stimme ab. Wenn ja, dann tritt für mich ein, so wie ich für dich eingetreten bin.
Back to the concept of nationalism from Encyclopedia Britannica. If they don't know this stuff, who knows it? In the age of nationalism, but only in the age of nationalism, okay, the principle was generally recognized that each nationality should form a state, its state, and that the state should include all members of that nationality. Okay, it's a bit blurry. Let's translate it. So, we should have as many states as there are nations on Earth. Okay, where was that theory used? Where was that theory used? On what planet? How can you even apply it to real life? How many states do you know that have only one type of nationality and not others in it? Of course, this principle cannot be applied and never existed. Nowhere on this planet. It's only an idea, only a theory. All national states include many nationalities, or cultures if you want. All the national states comprise numerous groups of people who speak different languages, have different religions, customs, and so on. Moral of the story. There are moments in life, I would say many, when the theory sounds good but remains only an idea. Kind of like your New Year's resolution to hit the gym. By the way, don't skip legs day, right? History looks like a big mess in this matter. All the states comprise more than one nations, and all the nations are formed from highly diverse people. Of course I'm joking. It's not a mess. That's normality. There cannot be a pure national state. But there was something in history. The people have tried to purify their state to become a real national one. Numerous massacres have been executed throughout history, and many millions died because they were impure. They had the wrong religion, wrong color of skin, or they owned something desired by some other more powerful being. Let me give you another example. Christophorus Columbus, aka Christopher Columbus, an Italian explorer, made the Indians an offer they could not refuse. Welcome to the New World. Now let's talk a business. He started probably the biggest genocide in human history, and now his descendants want to build high walls to defend their country from foreigners. Their country because they are patriots, they love their country. They have beliefs, they defend freedom, democracy and human rights. And of course the invaders are poor, because on the other hand, the people who can afford it, they can just buy a passport for a few million, and with it, the right to be democratic and to have principles. So help them God. In its existence of around 300,000 years, Homo sapiens lived with a nationalist idea in their head for about 200 years. That means 0.067% of our life as a species. We were thinking and developing the idea of the national state. To have a better understanding of this percent, in 8 years long life of a person, okay, 8 years, let's say, 0.067% represents less than 20 days. so less than a month. If humanity lived like a man, we could say that this man considered nationalism for about 3 weeks, a vacation in a lifetime. Think about it. All the flags, all the national hymns, all the stories, the institutions, the laws, none of this existed last month. Today's international order was built in the last 20 days of our life as a species, not more. Although for us it appears like it's been like this forever. No, it's not. It's a glimpse of an eye. For us it's forever only because we were born with it, and it's the only reality known to us. Today, we do not know any other way of living on this planet, other than splitting the crowd in the middle and saying, people to the left, your country name is North Korea, for example. You must love and defend your country with your life. North Korea is the greatest country in the world. I'm sorry. And it's a matter of patriotism and devotion to die for your flag and nation. People to the right, your country name is South Korea. You must love and defend your country with your life. South Korea produces mobile phones. South Korea is the greatest country in the world, and it's a matter of patriotism and devotion to die for your flag and nation. A cosmic coin flip, if you will. People that are lucky enough to be born on the right side of the fence will live prosperous in one of the greatest countries on this planet. The other ones, less lucky, will starve and live their entire lives in terror, being forced to cry when their abuser dies. But these people have to be equally proud of their great country. They have to serve it with honor and sacrifice themselves for the great ideas these countries represent. Guys, I'm sorry to ruin it for some of you, but it appears like all the countries sell us the same story. We are the greatest. You have to die for us, and it's your saint's duty to die when we say so. The country needs you. There's no other God, there's no other country like yours. Our God, our country is the only real God. It is the only real country. I'm sorry, I must be tired. I guess nationalism gives you a bit of a God complex. We and only we have the truth. The guys out there that speak another strange language, although there are many times in history where they spoke the same language and a few months ago or 2 years before were part of the same country, they are dressed inappropriately, with such bad taste. They are the devil, the enemy. We are the good guys, they are the bad guys. Now go chop chop, make many children, because we require them to defend our God and this country against the guys with a questionable dressing code. I hope you got the general idea. From the greatest countries in the world to the shittiest ones, they are all pretending to offer their citizens the best living conditions, and they are all pretend that we would work our entire lives and pay more than half of what we produce. Our national motto, your ass belongs to us. Bienvenido al Hotel Nacionalismo. You can check in anytime you like, but you can never leave. We are educated to be something, to be objects. We are not treated as human beings, but some documents, a picture near a flag, and a number. I think we need to see each other as persons, not as documents. Some of us were more fortunate and were born in stronger nations, others not so much. We are all just a passport photo away from a different life, aren't we? In theory, probably the same theory that we just spoke about a few moments ago, the one about the nation state. So in theory, we should all be equal. Do you have this feeling that it's the same thing to be born, I don't know, the 7th child in a poor family somewhere in Africa? or to have the chance to be the only son of a rich family in California? It's a theoretical example. Luck of the draw, right? Or maybe it's just the universe's twisted sense of humor. But how were things before this nationalist wave? Well-established countries that we all know today did not exist 200 years ago. And I'm not talking here about countries on the American continent, Asia or Africa, countries that became free in the last century. We are speaking about most European countries, and even big and powerful ones like Germany or Italy. Most of the small countries were a part of the greater empires as well. What were the people feeling about their belonging to a territory? Were they less proud and less productive? Were people disoriented and had no love for their land, their city or their family? Of course not. Everything was exactly the same. There were flags and songs, medals and statues. People felt the same thing they are feeling now about their community. Because nationalism is just the human need to belong to something, exploited by politicians in their interest. There's a natural human need to be part of a community, an idea, a family or a territory. People gather instinctively around abstract concepts or physical things. People are social beings and the whole society is built this way. We're like human magnets, sticking together for better or for worse. There's no need for someone to tell us to defend our country, our friends and our family. We do it without external pressure. It's in us. Before the existence of the countries, we did it for our community, and after the states will be gone, we will do it for ideas or for friends or for family. Before feeling themselves Americans, people there felt themselves Virginians or Georgians or Texans, and before that they belonged to another regions of the world or some other countries, and they felt the need to defend those territories. Perhaps our great-grandparents felt the same about the appearance of the United States. They felt like the world was crumbling. Their beloved state will disappear, and the evil politicians will destroy them from the hills of Washington. Just imagine the gossip around the town well. Those Washington folks are up to no good, I tell ya. That was my southern accent, sorry about that. Today the same fear exists inside the European Union. The people are scared that their interests cannot be sustained by uniting so many nations. Around 200 years ago, the Italians had the same feelings. The Piedmontese, the Genovese and the Venetians feared being ruled by Rome, a city that had been their enemy a few decades or centuries ago. How can it be done? Ask now an Italian and he will say that it's perfectly normal. But on the other hand, it's impossible to be ruled by some foreign politicians in Brussels, right? In conclusion, we are nationalist enough from birth. There's no need to be dragged into more secessionist ideas. We are selfish enough, and the world needs more unionist views. Nationalism helped entire countries to gain their freedom a few decades and centuries ago, but now we have to be united and equal. United not by redcoats and guns, but united as a human race, under the same roof. Why? Because together we stand, divided we fall. It's that simple. Divided, we do not have any chance of solving the equation of surviving. Pollution, climate change, clean water and all the other big problems of the planet cannot be solved while we are split into competitive nations. Imagine you live in a country that makes all the efforts to keep the water and the air clean. Meanwhile, your neighbors pull all their waste into the rivers, and that water reaches your land. Like they say, one bad apple spoils the bunch, right? What do? Invade your neighbor? It's impossible to achieve some goal without full cooperation from all the nations. But we compete against each other instead of cooperating. We see only our national interest instead of covering the general interest. This competition is like a game of planetary Russian roulette, and we are all taking turns. As I said, nationalism is only a bad idea that's exploited by some politicians. Wars, conflicts, segregation and discrimination are its results. We are better than them. We are here, behind this line on the ground, and they are there. Here is wonderful, there is not so much. We are right, they are wrong. We are first, us first. The ones that are lucky to have good parents or professors can start to think for themselves, but that comes a bit later. Shattering the edifice representing all we learned in the first 20-30 years of our lives takes time. It's like the fight against the strongest addiction you can ever have. We are all dependent on society. We have to consume the confirmations that come from the people around us. We have to be like them, otherwise we will be expelled, punished, and we will suffer. Breaking free from society's grasp is like kicking the mother of all bad habits. That is why the change comes slowly. The evolution process takes time, years and sometimes decades, and too often we as individuals do not have enough. Next time we will discuss the difference between nationalism and patriotism. Until then, I wish you to build yourselves good lives. Go on, be curious, and think for yourselves.